How's it going, everyone? My name is George, and today we are finally reviewing The Dark Knight. This is the sequel to Batman Begins, once again directed by Christopher Nolan, and once again stars Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. And this time he's facing off against the Joker, played by the late great Heath Ledger. And returning from Batman Begins is also Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, and Morgan Freeman as Alfred Gordon, who becomes Commissioner Gordon in this film, and Lucius, as well as adding Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, and Maggie Gyllenhaal replaces Katie Holmes as Rachel. So in this film, Batman as well as Gordon and Harvey Dent are taking on organized crime. They're trying to take on the mob, and as they're starting to pick up the pace, as they're starting to put people behind bars, the Joker's causing havoc. He's an agent of chaos, and really things are actually getting worse before they get better in a sense. So I know a lot of people when Heath Ledger was casted many years ago were not on board with him being the Joker, but once they saw the performance, he blew everyone away. Like, everyone talks about the phenomenal performance of Heath Ledger as the Joker, and it is truly iconic. It is probably the best performance of a comic book movie villain. Like, right from the beginning, when they're robbing the bank and the Joker henchmen are killing off each other one by one, and then you find out that the last one standing is really the Joker. Right away, this man gives a strong presence as a villain. Nobody knows who he is or where he came from. He's just causing chaos. He's an agent of chaos. And he just says some of the most iconic lines, like the "why so serious" story. And he really pushes Batman to the edge in this film. I feel like the last, like, more recently, a performance that can be compared to what Heath Ledger did as far as a villain that pushes a hero over the edge is more recently No Way Home, where Dafoe's Green Goblin pushed Tom Holland's Peter Parker almost close to that edge. But yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker is obviously the most talked about thing in this movie. He gives such an iconic performance and causes a lot of problems in this film. But it's not just the phenomenal performance of Heath Ledger that makes The Dark Knight one of the best movies of all time, one of the best comic book movies of all time. I feel like there's not a dull moment in this film, at least for me. It feels like every character, even the minor characters, feel connected into this movie. There's interest everywhere for this movie, from the rise and fall of Harvey Dent, as well as taking on these various crime gangs. Uh, Bruce Wayne and his conflict as to whether or not should he give up being Batman because Harvey Dent is the new symbol that he feels Gotham needs right now. Like, a lot of things are going on in this movie, and it keeps you invested, which is good because you just don't want to have a great movie, but most of the movie's great because of the villain. You need other stuff to make this movie worthwhile, and it's this great cast that Christopher Nolan puts together that makes this a great movie. I want to get into Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face, or Harvey Dent, because he's really only Two-Face more towards the end, but Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent is actually a phenomenal performance. I feel like he doesn't get looked enough because we always talk about Heath Ledger and his performance, but what Aaron Eckhart does for Harvey Dent is truly special. You see this man's rise. You see that he has the same mission as Gordon and Batman. He wants to stop crime. He partners up with them, and they're basically taking on these mobsters. And Harvey's a really good guy. He really truly cares about Gotham. But then, like, as the film goes more forward, even before he becomes Two-Face, you start to see a little darker side of Harvey Dent when he's about to use the coin to decide if he should kill this person or not to get information. This is after Gordon's death. Yeah. But also, you still see Harvey still a good person to the point where he decides to say, "Hey, I'm the Batman," and he turns himself in so that the real Batman can stop the Joker. But it all makes him much more tragic when eventually he does become Two-Face. And they add more tragedy in it with it because he's in a relationship with Bruce's childhood friend Rachel. And there's also a big story with Bruce and Rachel in this movie because Rachel is starting to move on away from Bruce because she feels that Bruce will never give up being Batman. And while I think Maggie Gyllenhaal does a good performance as Rachel, if I'm going to be honest, I think I prefer Katie Holmes' performance more. I just feel like her and Christian Bale just had better chemistry in Batman Begins than Christian Bale and Rachel did in The Dark Knight. I get it, they're a lot more distant with each other because Rachel's moving on with Harvey. I mean, Bruce has been more occupied with Batman, but I don't know. I just feel like the chemistry between uh, Katie Holmes and Christian Bale was stronger in Batman Begins. But the tragedy with this whole love triangle between Bruce, Rachel, and Harvey is that after the Joker is arrested, both Harvey and Rachel are in different things, and both those buildings are about to blow up. And while they're able to save Harvey, they can't save Rachel. So Rachel dies, leaving Bruce brokenhearted. And Alfred finds this letter, and Michael Caine once again gives a great performance as Alfred in this film. Alfred finds a letter where it is revealed that Rachel was going to marry Harvey Dent, and he chooses to keep that a secret from Bruce. And this leads obviously into The Dark Knight Rises, but you see the tragedy of this because not only is Bruce brokenhearted, this is where Harvey Dent turns because now the one thing he loves is gone and he feels betrayed in a sense. So yeah, the Joker really caused a lot of problems in this film. And I know The Dark Knight Rises never mentions Joker by name, and we'll get into The Dark Knight Rises next weekend. But yeah, a lot of things really go down in this film. Like the previous commissioner, Commissioner Loeb, gets killed. At one point, you think Gordon gets killed, but then we find out he fakes his death, and he becomes the new commissioner. And Gary Oldman once again gives a phenomenal performance as Gordon. I really like the dynamic of Gordon and Bruce Wayne in the not Bruce Wayne Batman in this film. He doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is just yet, but I just love that how Christian Bale as Batman and Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, how they just play off one another. And I think Christian Bale's once again great as Bruce Wayne in this film. His performance as Batman kind of goes down a little bit because the voice gets a little bit goofy. But all in all, I think he still gives once again a great performance. I think the action has improved in this film. I think Batman's action is great in this film. The Batpod looks great as well. Morgan Freeman's also great as Lucius Fox again. I feel like he's not in this film as much as he was in the previous film, but he's still great as always. And I also love some of the other things that go on in this film that are just like minor things. Like there's this like side character named Coleman Reese who finds out or puts together that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and he attempts to try to blackmail Lucius. Yes, but then like Lucius like basically says, "Wait a minute. You think your client that's wealthy and powerful is secretly a vigilante at night and you're gonna blackmail this guy?" And just like the look on Reese's face from arrogance to, "Oh, I'm screwed." Like that is just funny. That's also great use of a side character. Even like the character Maroney, he works well in this film. I think every character just works well and plays, even if it's just like a minor role, plays a big, it's for the big picture of this film. And really the message of this film, which is presented by Harvey Dent himself at a dinner get-together with him, Rachel, Bruce, and Bruce's date, which is you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And it's really a fitting line in this movie. And it's kind of ironic because obviously as we get closer to the end, Harvey Dent is basically now the villain and Batman is still the hero. But tough choices have to be made in this film. This film is also about tough choices. For example, as I previously mentioned, Alfred makes the tough choice of not telling Bruce who Rachel really wanted to be with. You see, Bruce was about to make the tough decision earlier on in the film of giving himself up as Batman in order to protect Gotham. You saw Harvey Dent making the tough decision to say he's Batman. Gordon making the tough decision to fake his death, not just to protect his family, family, but to also help capture the Joker. We see a lot of tough decisions in this film, and it comes closer to the end. So after Batman fights against the Joker, and the Joker is really just viciously beating him down at one point in this film, Heath Ledger is just very iconic in this film. He basically finds out that Joker turned Harvey Dent bad. Now he's never called Two Face in this film, but they've kind of hinted at it that he's been nicknamed Two Face at one point. And while all this stuff's happening with the Joker, as he's burning money, blowing up hospitals, taking people from hospitals prisoner, as Batman's getting ready for that final confrontation, Harvey Dent is basically killing crooked cops. He's killing Maroni, and basically also takes Jim Gordon's family hostage, and he's about to kill Gordon's son. So Batman saves Gordon's son. Harvey gets killed or dies, whatever you want to call it. I know Batman has a no killing rule. You can call it manslaughter at this point because Batman really had no choice. It was the best way to save Gordon's son. So when all hope looks lost, because Harvey Dent was the symbol of hope for Gotham City putting away all these criminals, Batman tells him, "Blame me for all these deaths. We need to keep Harvey's hands clean." And once again says, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And you see Gordon making another tough decision, which is framing his close friend and ally, Batman, for all these deaths. Batman making the tough decision by saying, "We gotta do this. You gotta hunt me down. We gotta make sure the Joker does not win the psychological war." And you see the iconic scene of the bat symbol getting destroyed. You see Alfred burning Rachel's letter so Bruce never sees it. You also see Lucius, because Lucius has this sonar equipment that can spy on any cell phone. And he's also making a tough decision, helping Batman with this as well. He even said, "Hey, I gotta resign after this." But then basically Bruce gave him an outing by saying, "Hey, put in your name and the machine gets destroyed" at the end. But basically, what we saw with Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne is Batman, while he's still the hero, he's living long enough to become the villain in the eyes of the Gotham people, but he's really the hero. Harvey Dent died a villain, but they're trying to make it seem like Harvey Dent died a hero. So that's pretty ironic what they did with that ending, but it's one of the most powerful endings to a comic book movie. And we've gotten some very stellar endings in comic book movies, some emotional endings, things. As I previously mentioned before, we just got done with Spider-Man No Way Home and that emotional roller coaster. But with The Dark Knight, it's really like an ending where the bad guys lost, but the heroes didn't win. Because now Gordon and Batman have to live with this lie that they've created. Batman's got to go into hiding, and we're going to see in The Dark Knight Rises how these decisions, and not just the decisions that Gordon and Batman made, but the decisions that Alfred made, the impact of what the Joker and Harvey Dent did, how they're going to impact the next film. And I mean, I guess I can say Dark Knight Rises takes place 8 years after The Dark Knight. So 8 years later, this stuff is going to still have an impact on these characters and Gotham City. But yeah, like this film was about making tough choices, being, are you going to live long enough to see yourself become a villain? Are you going to die a hero? Nolan did a great job with this film. And I know people like to dog on the fact that, well, it's a more realistic take on Batman. It's not comic book accurate. There's still comic book inspiration in there. Joker feels inspired by Joker from The Killing Joke at times. The Long Halloween is clearly some inspiration. And yeah, I find this movie to be phenomenal. I think the cast is great. Right? I think the action's great. The special effects were really cool. See, Gotham doesn't really look much like Gotham. It feels more like a regular city. I know people will dog on that, but even still, the realistic approach of Batman, I've always enjoyed this approach that Nolan has done. So I've never really minded the fact that Gotham doesn't feel like a gothic city like in the Burton films or even how it felt in Batman Begins. But yeah, I love The Dark Knight. This is probably one of those comic book movies I've rewatched several times over the years. And nothing really topped it for me as being my favorite or the best in my opinion. But yeah, this is also the film that I really began to really appreciate Christopher Nolan as a director. Like Batman Begins was the first film that I watched of his, but The Dark Knight was a film that when I first watched it was when I was getting more into other kinds of movies, not just like comic book movies. And this was like the movie that really made me open to his other film. But all in all, fantastic movie. I forgot to mention Hans Zimmer once again delivers an iconic score. I love his theme for Joker. It really gives like those horror, jumpy vibes to it. But all in all, everything's great in this film. And I think Aaron Eckhart doesn't get enough praise as Harvey Dent in Two Face. And it's just sad that Heath Ledger died so young. He died months before this movie came out. He never really got to see the people really appreciate his performance after when he was originally casted. He got backlash for it. But yeah, all in all, I'm gonna give The Dark Knight an A plus. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. Probably one of my top 5 favorite movies. And if you have not seen this movie or the Dark Knight trilogy, go watch this movie. Go watch the Dark Knight trilogy. It is a phenomenal trilogy, and I can't actually wait to talk about The Dark Knight Rises next week because that's another one that I enjoy. But despite the mixed reception it's gotten the last few years, but what do you guys think about The Dark Knight? Do you think this is better than Batman Begins? Do you think this is one of the best comic book movies ever? And is this your favorite Batman movie? I know there's plenty of Batman movies out there, but is this your favorite? I know for some people it could be something else, like Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Begins, but I know for a lot of people it's The Dark Knight. Comment below and let me know. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that loves Batman, that loves Christopher Nolan films, that loves the Dark Knight trilogy. And I hope to see you guys real soon. I can't wait to talk about The Dark Knight Rises. And I am looking forward to the Batman when it comes out in a few weeks. Take care, everyone.